This is David Tibbles at Amplitude, and we specialize in helping tree services with marketing to generate quality appointments and grow their business. But we don't work with every prospective client we talk with. In fact, we're pretty selective on who we bring on board. We like to land clients, but we also want them to be a great fit for our services so that they stay our client for a long time. And honestly, not every company is ready for our system. Our goal is not to sell you marketing just because you booked our call. Our goal is to figure out whether we can actually help you create a positive return on investment. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. You don't really care about Facebook ads and you don't really care about Google ads. You care about whether the money you invest comes back as booked estimates, sold jobs, cash flow, and growth. So let's talk about who this tends to work best for. The first thing we look for is whether your business has the ability to actually handle the opportunities we create. Our system is designed to generate appointments, and for a lot of our clients, that can mean somewhere around 10 to 20 appointments per week on average. Now, our guarantee is 50 appointments in 90 days, but the truth is, many of our clients do more than that. And that sounds exciting, and it is, but it also creates responsibility. Because when someone fills out a form, calls your company, or asks for an estimate, they're not casually thinking about tree work 6 months from now. In most cases, they're looking for help now. They expect a response quickly. Ideally, that means within 5 to 60 minutes. And if nobody gets back to them, they move on. That's just how homeowners behave. So if you are the owner, the salesperson, the estimator, the person answering the phone, the person up in the tree cutting it down, this may be harder for you. Not impossible, but harder. Because if you're 40 feet up in a tree when a lead comes in and that person waits 3 hours to hear back, there's a good chance that they've already called somebody else. That does not mean smaller companies cannot work with us. They absolutely can. But smaller companies have to be extremely committed. We have seen smaller companies make this work because the owner understood the opportunity. If a lead came in while they were on a job, they stopped, responded, set the appointment, and then they went back to the work. That's the level of commitment this takes. Because if we generate good leads and you do not respond to them, you are spending money to create opportunities that you are not fully taking advantage of. And that's frustrating for everyone. The second thing we look for is whether you understand that growth requires a marketing budget. Referrals are great. Everybody loves referrals. They usually convert better, they're easier to close, and they're the cheapest leads you will ever get. But referrals are also slow and they're also unpredictable. And there's a ceiling to how fast you can grow if referrals are your only source of new business. Now, we're an advertising company and we're here to help you create consistent opportunity. And to do that, you have to be willing to invest enough for the system to actually work. For most tree service companies, if you're not willing to spend at least around $100 per day in advertising, this probably is not going to make sense. That's not because we're trying to make you spend money. It's because the math has to work. You cannot expect to generate $50,000, $80,000, or $100,000 in new opportunity from a few $100s a month in ads. That's just not realistic. If someone came to you and said, I want $100,000 of tree work, but I only want to spend $500 to make that happen, you would know right away that the expectation is off. Marketing works the same way. You need enough fuel in the tank to get where you're trying to go. Now, when the system is working, the economics make a lot of sense. For many tree service companies, the average sold job is somewhere around $1,500 to $3,000. Some are higher, some are lower. But if you can close 2 or 3 or even 4 jobs a month from the opportunities we create, you get a positive return on investment. And everything after that is growth. That is the real conversation. It's not, can I afford marketing? The better question is, if I invest into marketing, can my team turn those opportunities into enough revenue to make the ROI worth it? And that's what we're looking at. The third thing we look at is whether you are coachable on the follow-up and appointment setting process. When you hired at Amplitude, you not only get leads that turn into appointments, but we work with you to identify and coach you into turning more leads into estimates and closed business. Because this is a huge part of why our system works. We're not just throwing leads at you and hoping for the best. We help you build a process around those leads. We help with automations. We help organize the information and make it clear who needs to be followed up with. We coach your team on how quickly to respond, what to say, and how to turn more of those leads into booked estimates. But you have to actually work the system. If a lead comes in and your team waits until the next day to respond, that's not a lead quality problem. That's a speed to lead problem. If someone asks for an estimate and your sales team doesn't follow up consistently, that's not an advertising problem. That's a sales process problem. And part of what we do is help you find and fix those issues. The nice thing about our model is that these customers are talking directly to your business. They're not going through a third-party call center. They're not being sold to 3 other tree companies. They're not getting booked on your calendar and your competitor's calendar at the same time. They're responding to your ads under your brand and entering your process. That's why the appointments tend to be much stronger. When your team sets the appointment directly, the homeowner knows who's who's coming, when you're coming, why you're coming, and unless something real happens in their life, they show up or reschedule like a normal customer would. That's what marketing is supposed to do. Get you in front of real homeowners who need tree work and give you the opportunity to win the job. The fourth thing we look at is whether you have a sales process that can close those opportunities. And this is important. We can control the advertising, we can help generate the leads, we can create the automations and help you improve the speed to lead process, but we do not control your pricing. We do not control your estimator or the sales presentation. We don't control whether your salesperson follows up after they give an estimate. And we don't control whether your company is competitive in your market. So you need to have a realistic close rate. If your team can close 20 to 40% of the estimates they run, the numbers work very well. Owners sometimes close higher than that, and that's normal. A good owner operator might close at 60%, 70%, sometimes even higher, because they know the business, they know the customer, and they know how to sell the job. But if you have a sales team, the goal is usually to make sure that they can close at least around 20% or better. If they are doing that, and we consistently put qualified opportunities in front of them, the ROI is very strong. But you also have to be honest about your number. If someone tells me they close 100% of every estimate, I'm not going to believe that, because nobody wins every job. Healthy businesses lose estimates. Sometimes your pricing is higher, the customer goes with someone else, the timing changes, the job just doesn't close. That's normal. The issue is not whether you lose some job, the issue is whether you are creating enough qualified opportunities so that the wins outweigh the losses. And that's where the growth happens. The fifth thing we look for is whether you're willing to look honestly at your own processes. One of the things our system does is expose where those gaps are. Sometimes the advertising is working, the leads are coming in, the appointments are being set, estimates are being given, but if nobody follows up on the proposal, and then the deal. But then nobody follows up on the proposal. And by the time the owner realizes what happened, the homeowner already hired somebody else. That's painful, but it's also fixable. Sometimes the issue is pricing. If you're consistently losing jobs to competitors because your prices are too high for your market, then that's something you need to know. On the other hand, if you're winning 80% of everything you quote, you might actually be too cheap. That's something you also need to know. The point is, marketing creates visibility and marketing creates opportunity. And when you have enough real opportunities coming in, you start seeing what is actually happening in your business. Are the leads being answered quickly? Appointments, are they being set? Are appointments being given? Are proposals being followed up on? Are customers choosing you, or are they choosing someone else? All of this information is valuable, but you have to be willing to look at it and improve. So to make this simple, you're probably a good fit if you are an established tree service company, or you're a smaller company with a serious commitment to growth. You're going to be a good fit for us if you have someone who can respond to leads quickly, or you are willing to personally make that a priority. You're a good fit if you understand that referrals are great, but you need consistent marketing if you want consistent growth. You're probably a good fit if you're willing to invest in advertising and you understand that a few $100s a month is not going to create a serious growth engine. You're probably a good fit if your team can close jobs, or you're willing to improve the sales process. And you're a good fit if you want a real system, not just random leads. Now, on the other hand, you may not be a good fit if you want to spend the least amount possible and somehow expect a massive result. You're not going to be a good fit if nobody in your team can respond to leads quickly and you don't have enough room on your calendar for 10 to 20 new appointments per week. You may not be a good fit if your sales process is broken and you're not willing to fix it. And you're not a good fit if you're not actually trying to grow. This may sound blunt, but it's better to be clear now than waste your time on a call, because the companies that do well with us understand the same basic thing. If you can consistently get in front of qualified homeowners, respond quickly, show up professionally, give good estimates, follow up properly, and close a reasonable percentage of the job, then you have a process for ROI and growth. Our job is to create those opportunities. Your job is to turn those opportunities into revenue. When both sides do their part, ROI happens. That is the type of company we help take to the next growth stage.